Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for being patient. We have had our guest on a pretty tight and packed schedule, so I apologize for the delay. That's on us. We were trying to get him out to see as many Texas things as we could, and we're happy and grateful to have him here with us this evening. I'm going ahead and get us started as we traditionally do for all of our meetings. And so if I just lost Mark Burrow, there he is. If you can please come on up and lead us in our invocation.
Let's do it from here. I think I can.
All right, as you wish.
Let's pray. Father God, we just say thank you because we know that all good things come from you. We thank you for the freedoms that we know in this country, to be able to gather and just seek your will in all things. Father, we know that Rob has come a long way, and he has a word for us to teach us about the possibility of losing the freedoms that you have given us. And so I pray that after we hear him, that we will be still, to be vigilant, to be active, and to glorify you by maintaining this precious land that you've given us. Father, I pray that you will anoint him with your words and that you will teach us your will and your ways. We come to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. If y'all would please rise and join me as we go through our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Yeah! Thank you, everybody. Well, I know that y'all are here this evening for our special guest, so I will just make my introductory remarks quick and short. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Eleanor Vasali, and I am your current elected Brazos County Republican Party chairman. And at this time, I would like to recognize our elected officials who were able to join us this evening. So we have Representative John Rainey in the back. Hello, John. I'm scanning the room. We have Sheriff Wayne Dickey. We have our SREC committee woman, Susan Lucas. If you are a precinct chair, can you please raise your hand? Do we have precinct chairs in the crowds? Thank you, precinct chairs. We have Carol Nichols in the back, who is your party vice chair. And I'd like to also take a minute to recognize the group who basically initiated this and helped pull this together. We have Mr. Roberto Bendagna from RTT, Mark Burrow from RTT, Mr. Jody Quinby in the back from Tea Party, Carol and myself from the Republican Party, and thank you to the party as well and to our executive committee for hosting this evening, for getting the room and the food for this event. And of course, because he's so kind to set up all of this sound system for us, I'd like to also thank Mr. Doug Watkins from T-SPAN, the Texas State Public Affairs Network. Doug, we really appreciate your time and your effort, so thank you for that. All right, so Without any further ado, our guest this evening has traveled quite a long ways, and we've had him running around these past few days. Just to give you an idea, yesterday he was in Austin and was able to speak with Mr. Steve Monastery, who is Governor Abbott's chief of staff, with our favorite, Commissioner Sid Miller, with some policy analysts at Texas Public Policy Foundation. This morning with Dr. Elsa Morano over at the Norman Borlaug Institute. And then I believe a cattle ranch and a dairy ranch as well. And he survived. I was worried he might pass out from the heat, but I know our team took good care of him. So, all the way from the Netherlands, our member of European Parliament, Mr. Robert Roos.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. First of all, it's wonderful to be with you tonight. It's very special to be as someone from a very tiny country in Europe, the Netherlands, to be in this wonderful state, Texas. I was never been here before. This is my first time. I've been many times in the United States, but Texas is my first time. Roberto, he said, these people are so friendly, and I have to admit he was absolutely right. Wherever I come, I have been. Yeah, the people are amazing. I've seen so many beautiful things, and we exchange views on a lot of things. So, but I will give a short introduction of myself. To start with, and then I want to tell you the things that are happening, what I recognize in Europe, but what I think it is a globalist agenda. It's not only happening in Europe, it's also happening in the United States. It's happening in our Western world. Let me explain a little bit of myself. I'm a member of the European Parliament. I'm the Vice President of the European Conservatives and Reformists. This is one of the political groups in the European Parliament. And I'm also a Vice President of the think tank New Direction that was founded by Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And I have become a politician by accident. It was never meant to be. I'm an entrepreneur. I founded 9 companies. I bought companies. I merged companies. And but in 2016, I sold a lot of my companies. But it was also the time, I think it was 2014, 2015, when I thought it's not going very well with our beautiful country. And then I make a long story short, by accident I end up in politics because I was speaking to people. I've never been a member of any political party, but I was always very interested in politics. I was reading the newspaper since I was 8 years old, and but I never had the time. But 2016, I sold a lot of my companies, and I had some time. 2018, I sold a lot of my other companies, and I had more time, and I ended up as a member of the European Parliament. I'm 56, almost 57. I'm a father of 2 children. I have a wonderful son, 21, and a wonderful daughter. She will become 27 next week. I'm very proud of them. And they are the reason that I went into politics, because I want to pass a country to my children that is safe, that is where there is prosperity, and most of all, where democracy functions well. And that's so. My big fight, in general, is that I fight for freedom. I want to tell something about that, but before I will do that, I want to thank Roberto. I want to thank Mark, Jody, Eleanor, Carol, Owen and Paul Rieger. He is not here tonight because he had a surgery on his nose, but these people made it possible to be here tonight with you, and also the last 2 days. Roberto, I was speaking in Peru, Lima, on the Agenda 2030, because that's for me an important file. I'm in the European Parliament. I did the negotiations on that file, and but I met Roberto, and he said, "You have to come to Texas." Tomorrow I fly to Washington, D.C., because I have to give a speech and a presentation over there also. So I had to be in the United States. I said, I love to come before, and that's why I'm here. But I really want to thank you for this experience and that I can share my views with you. I think we have a lot in common. I'm going to speak from the top of my head, but I've written down a few words that I want to speak, and then from there I want to speak from the top of my head and answer all the questions that you have. Dear friends, we are all here because we share a set of values. We call ourselves conservatives, and we call ourselves conservatives for a reason. First and foremost, we believe in freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of voluntary association. To raise families and to build tight-knit communities that prosper without the government interfering what we do in our daily lives. That is the ideal. This freedom has been the bedrock of our Western societies. The freedom that some of us take for granted, but that most of the world doesn't know and never has known. Our free societies did not fall from the sky, but were carefully crafted by our ancestors. But as a Dutch poet, Loesbert, wrote, everything that is valuable is defenseless. Our freedom is fragile. The starting point of the conversation should therefore be, how do we preserve this precious freedom for the next generations? How do we make sure that in a fast-changing world we do not lose the essence of who we are as Westerns? We face an erosion of democracy by technocracy. Across the West, power has been delegated to various actors. And these actors have a number of things in common. First, their democratic legitimacy is zero or close to zero. Second, they make sure that globalist values always prevail over national sovereignty. That power is always centralized, not decentralized, and that government intervention in people's lives always increases, never decreases. And with actors, I mean unelected bodies like the United Nations, the WHO, and in Europe, the European Union. And that's all enforced by a lot of powerful NGOs. They call themselves NGOs, but in Europe they are funded by our governments, so they are not NGOs, they are governmental organizations, but they bypass democracy. And these are the things that I wrote down, and from here I will speak on the top of my head. There are a lot of things that I want to talk about, and I'm going to mention some things, and maybe you have questions about that. But first of all, freedom. What I see is that people are becoming more and more dependent on the state. That is what is in Europe happening, and I see that in a lot of places in the world. This agenda is, in my opinion, we are heading to socialism. And the socialists, they love poor people because they depend on the state. That's why we see high energy prices. We talked a lot about the food production. I can tell you something about the farmers in the Netherlands, maybe you have seen that. But what I see is that democracy is moving away from people. It's top-down regulation, it's not what the people have asked for, but democracy, that means literally demos and kratom, that's Greek. And it means people, government, and that is what it should be. I'm a representative of the people. I don't call myself a politician. I was telling to Roberto today, my press officer, he said to me, "Rob, you will never be a real politician." I said, that is the biggest compliment someone can give to me. I see myself... Well, I want to be a representative of the people, and that's, in my opinion, what politicians should do. We should be humble and fight for a better life of the people. And the government must be as transparent as possible, and people must have privacy as possible. And what I see also in a lot of legislation, what is now in Europe going on, it's the other way around. I will tell about it later. One of the other topic is, what I see is that we have external threats and internal threats for our Western way of life. The external threat is, at this moment, I think China is one of the most external threats because they becoming very powerful in an economic way, in a military way, and also in a technical way. And but the thing that I want to talk about tonight is the internal threats, and that's what I call the culture war. It's a war on freedom of speech. We see all kinds of climate policies, and that's something that's also taking away our freedom. I want to talk about the farmers. I will talk about the farmers in the Netherlands, but it's also happening here in the United States. We see a lot of gender policy, family values. My Christian Democrat colleagues in the European Parliament, they exchanged family values for gender policy, LGBTQI. I really don't understand what they do to our children. Well, and then there are some other technocratical things that's taking away our freedom, and that is the central bank digital currency, what's coming up, but also the digital identity. Those are the topics that I want to talk about. I will start, I think, with the farmers, but maybe you have questions. Please ask them to me, and then I try to explain what I see, what's happening in Europe, but what I also see that it's maybe happening here in the United States, because it's a globalist agenda. So let me start with the farmers. Today we visit two ranches. It was, I spoke to, there was also a very, it was a marvelous conversation with Commissioner Sid Miller. It was great. The Netherlands is a very small country. We are 16 times smaller than Texas. It's just a tiny dot on the planet. But we are the second largest food producer of the world after the United States, because we have very efficient farmers. They are very good in innovation. They try to be as animal friendly as possible, and I think they do a good job. But they are also very efficient. And because of all kinds of legislation, now they decided that we have to reduce our cattle by 50%. In Lima, I spoke about the Agenda 2030, and that are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at these Sustainable Development Goals, it's something that is pushed from the United Nations. And if you look at these goals, every goal sounds very good. It looks very good. But if you have a real look what's going on, then you can see there is a different agenda behind it. And for example, one of the goals is zero hunger. So, and everyone wants that. The zero hunger on our planet. That is, that would be fantastic, because we want everyone to have enough food. But if you then going to reduce our farmers, then we will create our own problems, because it started in the Netherlands. We have huge, I said big, but it's huge protest of the farmers, and it was all over the world, the news. But it's going to happen anyway, and but if we have 8 billion people to feed, 8 billion people on this planet, and if we want to feed them all, we need more food production, not less. So it started in the Netherlands, but now it's also, it was this week in the news that there were in Ireland 60,000 cows that has to be, they have to get rid of them also. But it's also happening in France, in Spain. It's happening everywhere. We were speaking with Commissioner Miller, and he said, we recognize that because also in other states they are busy with the same policy. He had an example, and maybe you can help me, Roberto, which state was that?
Arizona.
Arizona. There was a family that had a 17,000 acre farm, and they moved to Texas now because the state took it away for actually no reason. But there is also an agenda to reduce the cattle by 30% in 2030 and 50% by 2050. So it's also happening in the United States. Maybe not in Texas. I think you are more free than the rest of the United States. But it's not helping the people. No one asked for it. It comes from the United Nations, and the United Nations is pushed by very powerful NGOs. The socialists, they love it because they, they love poor people. And if they are poor, they can control the people. But we want to be as independent. I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to have control over my own future. And I want to have as less as possible to depend on the state. But there is also another sustainable development goal, and that says no poverty. No poverty, that means a universal income. they want to give everyone on the planet money from the state. And that is making the people depending on the state. There is also, for example, poor countries with a lot of debt. They have a sustainable development goal that they want to take away this debt. But the real thing is that corporates will take over all the resources in that country. These people will stay poor forever. It's not helping them, but it will make the corporates even richer. And the socialists more control, because when people stay poor, they will be controlled by socialists. These are only a few examples of the Agenda 2030, and you can look at it. And my mission is to bring this message to the people, so that they start thinking about it and start talking about it. And if you disagree, please spread the word, because I think we should do this. We should do this fight together. In Europe, my colleagues in the European Parliament, they think it's fantastic that this is happening. I was a negotiator on this file, and I'm a member of the Energy Committee and Industry Committee, but also a member of the Environmental Committee. This was a file of the Environmental Committee, and I think 90% of my colleagues vote in favor for this. Then it came to the Parliament, and it was the same. Or maybe it was 80%, but most of the people voted in favor for this. They don't see the real agenda behind this, But also I think that my colleagues, and I see a lot of people in politics, they are captured in the system and they are not free to vote what they really stand for. They come with good intentions in politics, but once they are there, they try to stay in politics, and they have to be part of the system, because if you refuse to be part of the system, then you will be not on the list again. And that's how it works in Europe. Here in the United States it works a little bit different, but I think I will not be on the list again for the next mandate. But I think it doesn't matter. I don't have to be in politics, but I fight as hard as I can. So this is what's happening about the farmers. Then energy. I've been in energy all my life. I had my own engineering company in energy. And that was one of the reasons that I saw this is not going good. I have to do something. Because in Europe, we want to lead the world in climate policy. So we changed our energy production to renewables. Renewables is wind turbines, solar panels, and biomass. Biomass, that is burning complete forests to save the planet. It's crazy. But also this solar panels and wind turbines, I don't have to explain, it depends on weather conditions. So if there is no sun and there is no wind, we need a backup system. So you have two systems. It cannot be cheaper. They say the energy from renewables is free energy. But first of all, we need two systems, and energy has been expensive as never has been before. In 2015, Secretary General Rasmussen, he warned the West because Russia was invading in German environmental NGOs. Because Germany had ideas to go in shale gas, but these NGOs were so powerful, Germany didn't do it. They bought the gas from Russia, and we all know how that ends. When Russia invaded Ukraine, they abused this to say that the energy crisis was because of the invasion by Putin. But that was not true. The energy crisis started already in the summer of 2021, when there was not enough rain in Brazil, so the hydro power plants there were not producing enough energy, so Brazil had to buy gas. And also, our renewables at the North Sea only produced 25% of the energy of 2020. So there was not enough energy production by renewables, and that's how the energy crisis started. It amplified when Russia invaded Ukraine, but it's not the real reason. And even then, our neighbors, the Netherlands we share the border with Germany. They shut down 17 nuclear reactors in the middle of an energy crisis. Nuclear energy is the most safe and the most reliable and the most clean energy production you can ever imagine. So if you want to phase out fossil fuel, you need nuclear energy. France did it 40 years ago. They, within 10 years, they built 57 nuclear reactors, and since then, almost 80% of the energy production is made by nuclear energy. So it's possible, and it's very safe. But Germany invested 700 billion euros in renewables, and they had zero CO2 reduction because they shut down the nuclear plants, and now they are producing energy with brown coal, and that's even worse than normal coal. So there is no logic in this climate policy. In my opinion, if you want to control people, you got to control CO2, because everything we do in life leads to CO2 emissions. Eating, traveling, living, even breathing is CO2 emissions. And when I come to the European Parliament, I started to advocate to have nuclear energy. I initiated a huge report about to compare nuclear energy with renewables in cost and in land space, and everything was in advantage of nuclear energy. This report that was peer-reviewed by Professor Nordhaus, he is a climate economist. He won the Nobel Prize in 2018, but also a lot of other IPCC members. And even IPCC is saying, if we want to do the transition, we need nuclear energy. But our government is not doing this. Or the European Commission doesn't want it. There is no level playing field for nuclear energy and renewables. So this is, but yeah, energy is the basis of our life. If you want to get people out of poverty, we have to give them energy. And in 2010, Europe was energy exporting, like the United States was under President Trump, exporting energy. And now Europe and the United States has become dependent on energy import from all kinds of countries with a, let's call it, a not so very pleasant agenda. So it's not logical what we are doing. It's killing small businesses because the prices. We had bakeries that has to close. The people could not bake bread anymore because the energy prices were so high. Small businesses had to close. People could not afford the energy bill. Small houses, really just normal houses. People had to pay between $800 and $1,200 per month only for their energy. Our gasoline price was $9 per gallon. It was very expensive, and now it's become some better, but it's still a lot of money. But also, and if you have any questions, please ask, because I keep on talking, but I'm very, if you have questions, just ask me. The LGBTQI agenda, what they are doing to our children is they don't learn to write, they don't, mathematics or to read, but they learn all kinds of genders that, in my opinion, you should not talk about with young children. When they are 18, they can choose whatever they want, and I'm for freedom, so if people want to change their gender every day, that's fine with me, but don't bother the rest of the society, and especially not our children. Because, and I say our children, because we have children, they don't have them, and they are indoctrinating our children with all this crazy stuff. They really try to get rid of our identity, our history, our heritage, so that they can start all over again. I saw during COVID all these riots here in the United States. It was terrible to see. You have a question?
Sorry to interrupt. Because this is being filmed and we would like you on a microphone, if you do have a question, we have 2 stations at the back, so you can rise and we will call on you so that you can ask your question and share with us.
Great. No, that's great.
Do we, as individuals, have rights, or do we only have the rights our government allows us to have?
Do we, as the rights as individuals, or do we have rights?
Do we, as individuals, have rights, or do we only have the rights our government allows us to have?
Well, that's an easy question. For me, I think we have the right. It's what I said. The government should serve the society, and the government has to be as small as possible. So, yes, they have to serve us, and they have to. They are there for the people. So, we as people has as much rights as possible. Also, there is one big difference between Europe and the United States, and especially maybe here in Texas. You have the Second Amendment. We don't have that. The people with guns in Europe are the ones that are the criminals, that are the bad guys. Yeah. So let's say the good people, they cannot defend themselves. But it's part of our culture, and it's your Second Amendment right is part of your culture. But it's especially there to defend your individual rights, and I think it's very important. Maybe I hope that I answered your question. And
I have a question. Jody Quimby, if you would maybe give us a few more examples of how individuals and property owners are losing their freedom. I think you may have mentioned farmers are losing their land. I think the example of just how that works would be very beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Because you did mention the example in Arizona that was ranch land it was federal land that was leased from the government, and the government just said, hey, you can't lease the land anymore. So if you can give us some more examples of how the government intervention is taking place in Europe, maybe not only in Netherlands, but that gives us something to use as an example and compare with what's going on here.
Yes. Well, there are two things. The farmers in Europe now have an obligation that they only can use 90% of their land. So 10% they are not. They have an obligation to leave 10% of their land without any. Yeah, unused. Yes, unused. So it's crazy because it's your own land. It has gone from generation to generation. And there is a government that says you cannot use it. It's even worse. It's not even our country. It's Brussels. The bureaucrats in Brussels. They are telling the farmers, it's your land, but we decide how you're going to use it. It's the right of property is damaged. But it's also worse because our governments are saying that they use CO2 to control people, but now they are attacking our food production by nitrogen. That we have a nitrogen problem. In my opinion, if there is nitrogen, things start to grow. But they pick a moment in time, and that are the Greens, the socialists. The Greens are even the Marxists. They are the communists, and they were the communists in the past. But now they have a beautiful package and a climate package and a nature package. So it looks very good, but actually it's a Marxist agenda. But they say we have a nitrogen problem. Our soil is poisoned because we picked a moment in time. And I try to keep it short, but let's say in 1700, the Netherlands starts growing. We built ships, we went to this side of the ocean, we founded New York, that was called New Amsterdam by then. But we needed wood to build houses, to build ships, and also to warm the houses. And the population was growing, so we had, our country was, let's say, a complete forest, but they cut so many trees that there was only sand, like a kind of a desert, was left. And now these Greens are saying, this is the nature that we have to preserve, that we have to bring it back to. It's so crazy that because of nitrogen, all things start to grow, and they cut the trees. They take off the fruitful soil, so there's only sand left. It costs hundreds of millions of euros to do that, to destroy, because in my opinion, trees are good. It's captured CO2, it's giving shade, it's very nice. But it's only, they create a certain narrative to push their own agenda. So they say this nitrogen, the deposition of nitrogen, that's because of the farmers. There are a lot of planes in the sky, but our national airport is not a problem. The farmers, they are the problem. So we have to get rid of the farmers. 50% of the cattle, 3,000 farmers. And if you not listen, if you don't agree, they are going to expropriate this from our farmers. It has been transported from generation to generation. And this is not only happening in my country, in the Netherlands, but it's also happening in the rest of Europe. And now, yesterday I heard from Commissioner Miller that it's also happening in the United States. This is really a globalist agenda. Let's say a globalist in the West, because it's not happening. China is not listening, and all this Asia is not listening. But it's only in the West. We are busy with self-destruction, and it's even, yeah. So this is maybe the example that you. Is this an answer on your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
My name's Liz Ezel, and I'm a school teacher, so I don't know if I need a big bite.
Can you,
Yes.
I cannot hear you. Can you
Okay,
speak
can you hear me now?
a little bit closer?
Okay, all right. Get it short. Well, this question is really for you and Rainey. I lived in Europe for a while. I lived in Paris, so je parle français. Oh, bonsoir. Very difficult there. We would go to Holland because I always laughed, so we loved there. But what happened was that Europe didn't accept, but they had an invasion of many people from Syria. We now have an invasion in our country at our border. I live in that right now because my home has been taken by cartel and it has been bought with cash. The people that run through it are from Honduras. So give me your advice, because I want to talk to Mr. Rainey when this is over and ask his advice on how he's going to protect me now that I'm a widow. But more important, what did you see that happened to Europe as the invasion of the Syrians came? Did it change your culture? Did it change your government? What happened, and what advice would you give to us as we deal with this cartel that's coming into our state?
Yeah, there is also a similar situation in Europe. You have people from South America coming in, an influx of people. And in Europe, we have the same. In 2015, we had Angela Merkel, the German Bundeskanzler, and she said, we are shoving us. And since then, it's an influx of people from the Middle East and Africa. So we have even a bigger problem than you have, because these are people with a different culture. These people have a Muslim background, and that's really different than our way of life in the Western world. We believe in democracy, and for us, people can have freedom of religion, etc. But well, Muslims have a different culture, and it's changing our society in a tremendous way. The Netherlands, we had in 1990 we had 50 million people. We are not so very small country, but now we have 18 million people. 18, and that's all because of migration, because our own society is declining. This expropriation of our farmers is necessary to build more people to build more houses for those people. So we are exchanging our farmers who have been there since generations, producing our food, for people coming to our Western world. And it's just statistics that after 10 years, 50% of these people is not working. They are not contributing to our society. And well, if we look at Sweden, for example, in Malmö, there are more bomb attacks than in the Middle East. And it's also now happening in my country. For example, Rotterdam, the city where I was born, we have more people with a non-Western background than people who were originally born in the Netherlands. And well, it's not that I'm against these people, because if they come to our country because they want a better life, they want to live in freedom, and I don't blame them, because if I was one of them, I would probably do the same. But I blame my government and that they are allowing this, that they are not stopping this. This is also one of the reasons that I went into politics, the energy problem, but also this migration, because it's really changing our culture, and it's not doable anymore. Our children don't. We have a shortage of 400,000 houses in the Netherlands, 400,000. So our children stay at home till they're 30, 32. They cannot raise a family. And that is also a demographic problem. If you cannot start a family and you can have children, you create your own. It's from two sides. People with a Muslim background coming in, and our birth rates are going down. So yes, it's changing our culture, and it's the same problem as you have here in Texas, because I'm following that, of course. It's possible to solve the problem. I think President Trump did a great job. And but the moment that President Biden came to office, I think within a week, problem started already, but you know better than me. But also this is part of the agenda. It's also the United Nations say there are no borders, because people has the right to live wherever they want. But a country without a border is not a country. And that's also what President Trump is saying, and I fully agree with that. We need to protect our borders. That's what you do with your own home. These people who are very in favor of all the people coming into our country, these people are not opening their own doors so that everyone can sleep in their bed and can eat from the refrigerator whatever they want. But if it's taxpayers' money, then it looks different. But no, but it's changing our way of life, and it's changing our society absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I think you can hear me, huh? This
yes,
sounds very good, excellent. Yeah, thank you again, Rob, for accepting the invitation to Texas. I think it needs to be said and reminded that Texas economy is the number 9 largest in the world. And that's not just for being hospitable, but realizing the importance that Texas has. What I wanted to say is that one of the NGOs you're forgetting to mention, I'm happy and I'm glad that the lady that just asked the question talked about the cartels, but I think that NGO is TOC, Transnational Organized Crime. And I want to give an example, because I was born in Nicaragua. I'm sure most people don't know, Cuba is letting their people fly away to Managua, to Nicaragua. Do you know how much it costs, the flight? $5,000. And it's not first class. So that's beginning to be a business for this transnational organized crime. And then they charge from Nicaragua to the US $10,000 more. When they get to the south of the border of Mexico, the cartels, the transnational organized crime, give them a Mexican resident card so they can get on the plane to fly to the northern border of Mexico. and then they come in. Nicaraguans and Cuban coming in. So that's one point, that needed to be reminded, because obviously your experience from Europe, you're more used to rich corporations, NGO, philanthropists, which are obviously oligarchs. But my experience from the South is the dirty money of transnational organized crime financing this 2030 agenda. But three questions. One, if there's not going to be food produced, what is the alternative protein? Number two, it seems that the future of Europe is very negative. Can you tell us if there is hope for Europe? And number three, the transatlantic cooperation. What can we do to achieve that needed transatlantic cooperation?
Yes, thanks for the questions. Well, yes, they want to get rid of the farmers, but we also have a legislation already in Europe to replace this protein of animals with proteins from insects. And that's not science fiction anymore. We have a insect farm already next to our university in Wageningen, which is a very famous university for our farmers. And we have already, there are 4 insects, mealworms, crickets, and 2 others. They are approved to add as a supplement in our food system. But we don't recognize it because they know people don't want it. For me, it's unbelievable that we are people giving this because people don't want it. But what they do, they write on the label, not the name of this insect. They have a kind of Latin name that no one recognizes. So it's on purpose. But we do not know if it's safe. I was this morning at the Boerlock Institute, and Dr. Cross, he told me we do not know if it's safe. It was even stronger what you said.
Well, the science is not available to even know anything about the nutrition quality or the safety.
Yeah, there is no science behind it, and they are just doing it. But there is also people who maybe cannot eat it because of their religion, if it's not kosher or it's not halal. But I think the people have the right to know what they are eating. So, but it's just in bread, in pizza, it can be. It can be added now in everything, but this is just a start. So that's the thing that they are busy with. For me, it's humiliating that they give this to people. The second question, that was Europe. Yes. People get fed up with all these high energy prices. People get fed up with the gender policy for what they do to our children. People get fed up with that they want to get rid of our farmers. And what we see now, there is the resistance is starting in Europe, and we had already 2 conservative governments. We have 27 member states in the European Union, and we had Hungary and Poland already as conservative governments, but now we have also Sweden, Czech Republic, Italy, and since last week, Finland has chosen for a conservative government. So that is going very well. We in the Netherlands, we had elections in March this year. It was not a election for the national parliament, it was a regional election, but it was an indirect election for our Senate. And there was a new party, the the citizens, no, the farmer citizens movement, and they had almost 1/3 of all the seats now. So they are doing really well, and it's important to see that people don't accept it anymore. But a lot of people do not know what's really going on, so that's why I'm trying to spread the message also on this side of the ocean. Last December, I was speaking at the Young Republicans Gala dinner in New York, and well, that was in December, and that was, let's say, a month after the midterms over here, and yeah, I was really hoping for that red wave that was announced, but yeah, it was not there. But I said, please don't deliver. Please deliver a conservative, a Republican president, because it's important for the United States, but it's important for the Western society, because it's not, for me, it's not only about Europe and not only about the United States, it's about our Western civilization, and that's so strong. But you also have a third question, and
Transatlantic cooperation.
well, the transatlantic, yeah, that's why. Okay, that's a good. Yeah, but that's why I'm here, and I will speak in Washington on Friday. I try to make as much connection as possible, because, yeah, we have a shared past, but I think we also have a shared future, and yeah, let's do this together. So, yes.
Hello, my name is Michael Meinersman. As you can probably hear, I'm from Far East Texas. Very close to Holland. So anyway, thanks for coming. It's great to hear you, and I think it's very important that people like us, conservative, liberty-minded people, are working together internationally, because the other side does it since decades.
Yes.
And we need to catch up, otherwise we cannot win this fight. Yeah? My question is mainly, because you answered a couple that I would have had anyway, is, and you mentioned some of the conservative or liberty-minded parties. AfD in Germany is now the second, polling at least, the second largest party in Germany, absolutely amazing. Finland and other countries. But it's still only 20% or 30 maybe. That means 2/3 of the people are still falling for narratives that are, as you were saying before, completely nonsensical. I mean, any elementary school kid would know this when we grew up, right? I mean, we had communism in East Europe, but nobody believed it. They had to live in it. They had no choice, but they didn't believe anything they were told. But today, my feeling is 2/3 of these Europeans actually believe that shit. How can you explain this success of thought and narrative control in Europe of totally nonsensical stuff? Thank you.
Yeah, a good question. Because they have a very strong connection with the media. And what I always say is the media keep the people stupid and the government make them poor. But this is really what's going on. People have no idea. Let's say if you the narrative is very strong. First of all, there is a lack of debate. I was in energy for 30 years. If I start to discuss this energy transition, they immediately say, "Oh, I'm not talking to you. You're a climate denier." But I'm in energy for 30 years. I really know what I'm talking about. We don't talk to you. You're a climate denier. If you don't wear a colored flag all day, you're a transphobe. If you if you want to have a discussion about this illegal migrants coming to our countries, you're a racist. I was also fighting very hard against the restrictions during COVID. I was an anti-vax. So we had a real lack of debate, and they give people names to get rid of them, and it was supported. It was a very, very strong narrative from all the media and also big tech. We have seen the Twitter files. Have you followed that, Twitter files? And well, it was even from the FBI. It's incredible. FBI is pushing a narrative. No, but they were pushing a narrative. And real scientists, people with a different opinion about the subjects, were silenced. So people, and well, if we talk about this gender policy and what they're doing to our children, I think a lot of people don't know, first of all. A lot of parents have no idea what they are doing. They have to work all day. They have to go to the supermarket to do the shopping. They bring the children to sports, etc. And at 8 o'clock in the evening, they sit on the couch, they take a cup of coffee, they watch the news, and that is the narrative the government wants us to believe. And then they go to bed and the day starts all over again. So I do think a lot of people have no idea what is really going on. And that's why I said if you agree with a lot of things, we have to spread the news and we have to speak out. And for a lot of people it's very difficult to speak out because they are captured in the system. And I come back to the COVID example. If you had a different opinion, you could lose your job. Now also in Ireland, we just spoke about Ireland, about the cuddle there, they had to 60,000 of the cows that they have to get rid of. But also in Ireland now there is a new law coming up that if you're spreading disinformation about this gender policy, you can go to jail. We cannot imagine that in a free Western world that this is happening, but it is happening. It's much worse than we are thinking. So, yeah, if that law is adopted, people will speak. They don't speak about it anymore because you lose your job. You go to jail, you lose your job. You cannot afford to take care of your family anymore. But
follow up. I guess we all agree on this. Yes, there's massive and has been for years massive pressure on the narrative and censorship and cancellations, deplatforming. My question was rather, how can that many people still fall for it? Especially after what we've seen under COVID, the last 3 or 4 years. How can they still believe it?
Yes, that's also a good question. I don't have the answer, to be honest. I was surprised how easy it was to get people in a certain direction to. It looks like people were hypnotized. And I was speaking out against all these COVID restrictions. I think if you feel more safe having the vaccine, you should do it. If you want it every day, it's fine with me. But if you don't want to do it, people should respect that. I didn't took the vaccine because I believe in my own immune system. And I was not even allowed to enter the parliament anymore. But that's really an elected member of the parliament. So where does this stop? If you're going to exclude people with a different opinion from a parliament, then democracy is really in danger, because now it's a vaccine next time it's something else. We disagree with you. You are not allowed to enter the parliament. So no, I don't have an answer on that question, but I was surprised too. And I think a lot of people depend on the system. When you have a job, you have to take care of your family, you need the money, and it's easier not to speak out than to do speak out.
I'm Jeff Purrier. Just wanted to ask you, thank you for being here, by the way, and presenting these ideas. I wanted to ask you if you would explain technocracy a little bit. I heard you refer to it, and if you could explain a little bit more to everyone exactly what that means.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is what we can do. Do you have any? My understanding is that Europe does their voting using paper ballots on the day of the election. They don't have these massive mail-in things and early voting programs, and don't do all the electronic things that are susceptible to hacking and everything. But the question I have for you is, do you have any advice for us in that, because in 2020 we lost, basically the presidency was stolen, in my view, by 5 counties and 5 swing states, 5 leftist, very liberal Democrat, corrupt counties, adjusted the vote to make it to where their candidate won. And so those 5 liberal counties decided who our next president would be in a fraudulent way. And do you have any, you may or may not have thought of this, but do you have any suggestions for us how we can keep that from happening in 2024?
Well, let's start with the last question. Do I have an advice? I was surprised to hear that you can go out to vote without a identification. I was really surprised. Maybe that's better in the Netherlands. In Europe, we cannot vote without identify yourself. So and once you voted, then you voted. You cannot vote twice or 3 times or 4 times. So yeah, I think. A law that you have to identify yourself when you come to the polling station. No, it's a polling station. Yeah, the polling station. When you come to the polling station with your voting list, your ballot, then you have to identify yourself before you can really do the vote. Jody was saying in the United States it's not an election, it's a selection, and that was yeah. But yeah, that I'm not a lawyer. My background is I'm an electrical engineer, but I have some common sense maybe. But yeah, I think you can come up to yourself with this solution. But I was really surprised that people, and also this email voting, it was really ridiculous. Yeah. It was, they abused the COVID situation to have the president that they wanted. Maybe, yeah. Maybe I cannot say that, but yeah.
Jody, I have a follow-up on that
yeah,
question.
and because there was also another question, but
go ahead.
Okay. No, but it's a follow-up question, then we can do this. Yeah. Yeah.
While you're on elections, if you would briefly tell us, do European countries use electronic voting, or is there a lot of different things going on? Do they use paper ballots? Do they vote all on one day? Are they able to vote in different places in the county? So let us know if paper ballots are reasonable, because I think many people in the United States think it's not reasonable. It was done that way for many years, and I realize there's problems with any system. But tell us what is common for the physical act of voting in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's also a good question. We do not have voting machines. We had them, but because of the possibility of fraud, we only used them one time, and I think that's 12 years ago or something like that. And so you have to go to a polling station, and it has to be a polling station in your neighborhood. You cannot go somewhere else because your name is on the list, and they check if you have to identify yourself and your name is on the list, and then they once you have voted, then they put a check mark after your name. So, but it's only with a red pencil and a paper, and in the evening, then the boxes are turned down and people start counting, and everyone has the right to be there. As a citizen, you have the right to be present during the counting. So that's the way you can control if everything is going in a fair way, because you can organize that. If you do not trust it, then you can organize a group of people. You take that polling station, you take that polling station, and you can see what's going on. But it's not electronic, and it's in your neighborhood. You have to identify yourself, and you can control it. You can count also with them.
And then follow up with technocracy.
Yes. Well, the technocrats. What they are doing, for example, with the nitrogen problem, and also the CO2 problem, the climate problem, it's not measured. It's only done by models. And you can create every model that you want, so you can create every model, you can create every outcome that you want. But it's huge, the CO2 problem, and it's not helping, because if we achieve the climate goals in 2050 as Europe, it has cost us thousands of billions of euro. We have 13 laws, it's called Fit for 55. Only that package cost 5,000 billion euros. But if we achieve all the climate goals, we will only have 0.04 degrees less warming up. It's in Celsius, but it's even less in Fahrenheit. But we cannot measure that. So we are investing billions of euros, thousands of billions of euros in something without any result. As a businessman, I'm not doing that. If I'm just a simple human being, if I invest money, I want result. Because we can spend that money only one time. We cannot spend it on education, we cannot spend it on better infrastructure, we cannot spend it on safety, and we are spending this on things without any result. But it's just to push a narrative to control people. And if we're talking about controlling people, then, but I don't want to make you depressed, but the central bank digital currency and the digital identity are coming. The digital identity, that is a thing that is there because we had the green pass of the Corona passport during COVID. Was that also, that was not here in the United States? You didn't have well, it was in Europe. They created the green pass because green sounds so good, but it was, for me, it was institutional discrimination. They said you need a green pass to travel between member states. But after 1 month, we needed this thing to go to a restaurant or to go to a bar or to go to the gym. So if you didn't have a green pass, you were excluded from society. Now they transform this green pass, this corona pass, into a digital identity, and they are going to cooperate with the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization is for 80% funded by private money from big pharma and what I call oligarchs. They call themselves philanthropists, but I always call them oligarchs. So, can you imagine that if there is a new pandemic, they will transfer power to this organization to arrange a set of packages all over the world? These people are not democratically elected. We cannot hold them accountable. They have financial interests, but there are also other problems, because also China, for example, is one of the big partners in the WHO. They have another. So this central bank digital currency and this digital identity they are technical solutions. And if you combine that, the central bank digital currency, which is not real money, it's coupons, because they can program it. They can say, we put your money is on your central bank digital currency, but you have to spend it between this and this period, and you can spend it on that and that and that products. You have a digital identity, so they know everything about you. They can control your money, because maybe if you are bad citizens and you don't listen to the government, they should well, it happened in Canada already during COVID. These truckers, they were funded by people who supported them, and they blocked their bank accounts. But you can do that very easily when it's digital. So that's what I meant. That's what I meant by technocratic solutions. And okay.
One last question before I wrap up with some final remarks.
Okay, here's the East Texan again. It's actually more of a clarification to what you said about the election system in Europe, which was, of course, all correct. But before the people here think we have the perfect election system in Germany, I wanted to point out, whilst that is all true, there is more or less one-day voting, election ID, voter ID required, and paper. We do not have primaries in Europe, okay? No. So all the candidates are nominated by the party leadership on ranked lists. Do you know what that means? There's no grassroots, right? So you vote for a party, typically, and then, depending on what the party said, on what rank position you are, you're either almost guaranteed to be in parliament or not.
Correct.
Number two is, we do not have elected sheriffs or elected judges, at least in Germany. I'm not sure how Holland is. Yeah. They're all appointed. So the division of powers, the system of checks and balances in Germany at least, is a total fiction. There is no division of powers. Everything is run and appointed by the one party that wins the election. Could you maybe comment on that?
Yes, I agree. That's also in the Netherlands, and I think in a lot of European countries, even our mayor is not elected, and even the European Commission is not elected. They are all appointed. And I don't want to bother you with that, but the European Union has, normally you have the House of Representatives and you have the Senate. But in Brussels we have the European Commission, We have the European Parliament, which I'm a member of, and we have the Council of the European Union. The Council have elected people, the European Parliament have elected people, but the one who can who have the initiative of new legislation is the European Commission, and they are all unelected. So this is really a set system. It has nothing to do with democracy. It gives the people the idea of a choice, but a lot of things are already made up. And yeah, that's also, but this is really a European problem, so I don't want to take much of your time with that, but it's really a thing.
Thank you very much. So we're going to wrap up, and I'd like to close with a final question. Before I first put everybody's mind at ease, the snacks on the table are insect-free, or at least not above the FDA allowed, because unfortunately, if you didn't know, the FDA does allow, has an allowance in the production process, but so we can attest to that. Member Roos, we're here tonight. You have a group of engaged citizens. From your viewpoint and your position, what is a charge that you can give us? What would you like us to do to help with what you are trying to accomplish? Any advice for us this evening?
Yes. I started I had a little speech, but I think we all share freedom as a common value, and I think you share that maybe much more than the Democrats, and especially here in Texas. Normally, I ask people, please speak out as much as possible, because only if we do that, if we start a debate, if we have discussion with each other, and but I'm not saying that I'm always right. If I have a debate and people can convince me that I'm wrong and that they are right, I really want to listen. But at least we should have a decent debate about things. And it takes courage to speak out. Most of the time, it's what I said before. It's easier for people to do not to speak out than to do speak out. But that is what I always ask from people. Also on social media, the people they send me messages and how can I help? And that's the thing. Let's do it together. Let's bring out the message. Let's defend our values, because freedom and democracy, we need to maintain that. We need to fight for that, and yeah, people who do not have the courage. Well, that's what I would say. The fight for freedom is not for cowards. And yeah, please do that. Speak out as much as possible. Try to convince people. And yeah, let's do it on this side of the ocean and also the other side of the ocean. And if you have any questions, you can follow me on social media. I always try to answer them. And if yeah, let's do this together. I want to answer any questions that you have, and maybe I have questions for you. Let's stand together, let's fight together, and yeah, let's give the freedom and democracy to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. Remember, if you have any questions for us at the Brazos Republican Party, you can always reach us at brazosgop.org, or you can come and ask me a question this evening. We appreciate seeing you, and we hope we'll see you again at our next events. We're going to have a lot of things planned as we move into the next election season and voting this fall as well. So stay tuned. Thank you again to Member Roos. We're excited to have you. I forgot to mention, tomorrow is also very exciting. Mr. Glenn Beck was interested in interviewing our guest here, and so we will be back on the road early tomorrow morning to get him to the Glenn Beck show. So tune in for that as well. All right, thank you all, everybody. Be safe, and God bless.